Good evening, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us tonight for our November monthly For the Record St. Albans Today show. And guesting with us, Brendan Deso, the Select Board Chairman in St. Albans Town, and St. Albans Mayor Tim Smith. Thanks, gentlemen, for jumping on board tonight. It's a live show, at least if you're watching us live. Love to get phone calls, 528-5315, 528-5315. Boy, let's start with the Halloween storm. I'm almost afraid to ask you this, Mr. Mayor. I suspect probably a little more than a few gallons of what partially treated effluent found their way into St. Albans Bay. I'm hearing some in the millions.
They normally handle 3 million gallons.
That's kind of the max they can.
That's sort of the average. Okay. Max is 8 million.
Is that max is 8 million?
And because of the combined storm water and sewer, they had 15 million gallons go through the plant.
Right, I think I heard the figure 12. Wow.
Yeah, 15 is what I had heard. It does get treated. They did run into some power outage type stuff that had to get the generator going. I haven't heard the final repercussions of that, but the storm was significant. I mean, I was amazed when I watched the news on Friday night as to what the impact was around the state. Even up to Richford, Montgomery. So significant for sure. I don't know what the impact is downstream, if you will, but.
No, it was an incredible storm. I logged some time in Enosburg. Had to get to Enosburg through going up through Franklin, but incredible storm. I mean, I've been around for a few years. I've never seen Enosburg Falls right at the dam there, and also in Highgate Falls, just by the Ormond Croft generating facility where you can walk across the old bridge. Incredible. I've never seen the Missisquoi so raging as it was after that storm.
It was amazing.
Again, I don't know who the weather observers are, one of whom I used to be, but I was seeing like 5 inches of rain, Enosburg Falls, East Berkshire, but that's a lot of rain. But the river was just really cranking. That was a tough storm. Yeah, it brought back memories of Irene, which especially damaged parts of southern Vermont. But I know the governor was up in Richford. One of the bridges up there pretty much washed out.
Yeah, I went to Newport yesterday, I guess it was, and I think the washout in Richford is not where you would have expected it.
In fact, when they said the Route 1, I'm not even sure. I'm not sure what bridge they're even talking. It's not the downtown bridge.
No, definitely not downtown.
That's not Route 105.
And bridge may be a strong word. I mean, it was a culvert.
Okay.
I think it was a normal road over the top of the culvert. Huh. And what appears to have happened is the culvert couldn't handle the water, and it went up both sides of it, and then washed, and the road fell in from there. But it's just north of the Border Patrol station.
Is that right?
I thought it was further down where the actual river goes, but this was a brook. This wasn't a river that caused the washout.
Really? Wow.
So that was interesting to see.
So did you see a lot of damage en route to Newport, or?
No, I mean that was a significant part of it.
Yeah.
Things were flowing real well.
Yeah. Aside from that, Tim, how'd the city get through that? I'm sure, obviously, some. I didn't lose power. There's some outages in the city.
We did not lose power.
Did you get any outages in the town? Do you know?
The north end. I don't know about the hospital, but the north end was pretty well out for a couple hours, and we had some issues at Walmart. But no, everybody seemed to be doing a pretty good job getting everything back online. We only had a couple of culverts fill, according to Alan Mashter. So no, we made out pretty well compared to our friends up in other parts of the county.
Yeah, I know that East Fairfield was difficult to get out of.
Yeah. In fact, my friend Denny Hawksworth, I'm sure you know Denny, she was heading to Boston. Took her like 3 hours to fight her way to the end. Once she got to I-89, she was fine. And she kept going through, trying to go through Fairfield. Couldn't go on 105 towards St. Albans. But I think she said from her Enosburg home, it took her 3 hours just to get to the interstate.
Wow.
Yeah, it was some real tough going. So some trees down, I assume, I'm sure limbs. In fact, my kid's grandmother, Ann and Neville, down on the Georgia shore, fortunately I got a call. feed her cow when she's not there, but Jennifer got a call saying a tree had fallen right over her driveway. I went down with my handsaw and was working away for about an hour to the point that a car could probably just get in the driveway. Unfortunately, 3 guys, Mr. Pigeon, I just got one of their names, and I think, but 3 guys had been out with their chainsaw and were good enough to stop and said, looks like you could use some help. I said, boy, could I? And these guys in about 15, 20 minutes did some great work and just opened up the driveway again. But it was a good hunk of a big maple tree.
Yeah, I know up on Aldous Hill, we had a tree come down on one of the bridges that needs to be cut up and the bridge repaired over one of the small streams up on the main trail. But
yeah, that was some storm.
So
In fact, Montreal, that gave Montreal its wettest month on record. October of this year was, I'm not sure how far their weather records go back, I guess at the airport in Trudeau, but literally their wettest month.
Wow.
If somebody maybe can translate the inches for me, I think about 270 millimeters, I think, but anyway, bunch of rain.
it didn't affect the trick-or-treaters. I've
Well,
had people
tough-
say that
yeah.
they had good turnouts at their
Really?
houses, and
Wow.
my kids went out in
Did they really?
2.5 hours. They didn't complain one bit.
that right?
They were on the go, and
Hey, good for them.
so
Yeah, that's a Halloween that'll be long remembered, I suspect.
Oh, yeah.
Story making the rounds. So the immigration facility, and I might be having trouble coming up with its official name, but making some noise about possibly they may want to move from the city to the town. Mr. Mayor, I can only assume you would like them to stay where they are, or not necessary, or?
well, for sure. I mean, we are. We would love to have them stay there. I mean, whatever it is, 140,000 or 130,000 square feet is not easy to fill for office space.
Hundreds of jobs, obviously.
But at the same time, we did approve an allocation, or I don't know if allocation is the right word, but to potentially do something up by exit 19. So there'll be options, and the cards will fall where they will. But we think, as we told the town, we're willing to give that approval for the water and sewer. But at the same time, if it comes in, but at the same time, we're not going to stand down and not promote what's already there in the city. So we're going to continue to work and try to keep something there. But if the choice is made where they end up in the town, it's important for us. Brendan and I and Carrie and Dom have all talked about that it's important to keep the jobs in the area.
Right.
That's the most important part.
The most important part is to keep it in the county and not have it go outside the county.
And is there any talk, are you running into any thoughts that the folks might want to go outside the county? Has that?
No, I think from all indications, they're focused on, the workforce is significant.
Here, obviously.
So I think they're fine with staying in the county for sure.
Brendan, you would like to see these folks move to the town, or what's your thought on this?
So I met with Marty Manahan within 24 hours of being made aware that this was a possibility up by exit 19.
Yeah.
Mayor was on vacation, or a staycation with his family.
I'm always on vacation.
Yeah, always, right? No, and I think the quote that I gave Marty when we were sitting down at Tim's place for breakfast was, the most important thing is that the jobs stay here. A developer identified an area that they'd like to create a proposal for in the town. But if the same developer had approached the town and asked for a letter of support to do something, let's say, on the Fonda site or somewhere within the city, our mindset would have been the same. It's the most important part of this whole equation is keeping the jobs in the area. And I'm really happy that we were able to get to that point pretty immediately. I think any degree of squabbling might have led to whoever in the federal government gets to make these decisions to look at other parts.
Better place to move to.
Yeah, I mean, if these two entities can't figure it out, why do we want to be here? They must not want us. Let's go to Essex or Ohio or Texas. But we came together pretty quickly, and I think that'll translate to some good success no matter where they go.
Was this surprising news? Had you heard rumblings about this for a while?
Yeah, we had, through my day job, received a call from Pizza Galley wanting to know what land was available. we had shared with them energize the land, the industrial park expansion.
Right.
So they were weighing their options. We were led to believe that it was more kicking tires just to sort of answer the general services request and show
But
that they
you
did.
knew it was the immigration issue, the immigration
Yeah,
folks.
Yep. So,
Are they just
and then
looking, do they want more space, or why are they looking for possible new digs?
I think the building may be a little obsolete to what their needs are nowadays. I think they always want more parking. They want different opportunities to expand their business. And who's to say where the immigration discussion is going to go moving forward here over the next decade?
Right.
So I think they're sort of weighing their options relative to that and looking at what the possibilities are. So we were aware of it. 2 months went by. We hadn't heard anything more. So we thought that's exactly what it was. They were kicking tires, and then we received a request for the water and wastewater. So we knew they were taking it to the next step.
How soon do you think they'll decide what they want to do with this? You got a feel for any time frame on their end?
I don't dare say. I keep thinking back to Morris's line, and when that all came.
Beautiful new facility. That's right. I went by there. Where is that facility? I drove by there the other day with my kid.
Nothing. And the threat of closing that down, a new facility, that was 10 years ago, I think.
Right.
So I guess I'd take a wait and see attitude.
Yeah, that's right. The TIF controversy, or the past TIF controversy, is that still talking the tax increment financing? State Auditor Doug Hoffer having some issues with St. Albans' work. Does that issue go on, or is that quiet, or is that gone, or?
No, I think for all discussion purposes, I think we've moved on from it. I think I think where the discussion lies is more at the Vermont Economic Progress Council. They have to refine some of their wording and be a little more specific. I think the state auditor would like to keep the discussion going. He's pushed it a couple different times, but we have chosen not to comment, engage him. I mean, we're Dom and the city was, I think we're exonerated, if you will, in terms of what the interpretation was, and the auditor's still pushing back, but we're moving on.
Are there more possibly TIF projects in the wind?
There is. We're discussing having some discussions for the March town meeting day. So that may be the Kingman Street streetscape. So that might be the next one on the list.
So Brendan, maybe all you folks getting into budgets at this point, is that coming up? You got a couple more months, I guess.
Yeah, we got into it early this year. We usually start right after the first of the year. We decided to look at it in the month of October into November. We've gone through every department line by line. We have another public meeting on the 20th to wrap up budget talks, and then we'll shift to talking about ballot articles for town meeting day. No real surprises. Healthcare through the roof again. Seems like every time we hit the refresh button on our healthcare costs, they go up 15%.
And you're talking just for town employees now,
right? I mean,
is that right? 15%?
I don't know the percentage. Last
12 or 15.
Something like that.
It's on our budget alone for the few employees that we do have. It's the number I got this morning was $65,000 of an increase.
As in an increase?
Yeah, and that $65,000 on our grand list is about 0.6 cents on our tax rate.
Wow.
So that's very real. Raises a $300,000 home's tax bill by $15 just in insuring,
Tim,
health
the
insurance.
city's obviously running into the same issue, I assume?
I don't know the specifics like Brendan does. I know for FCIDC, we went to an HSA policy 6, 7, 8 years ago. Savings going with an HSA was about $17,000, of which we offset some of the deductible costs for myself and my assistant. to Brendan's point, within 2 years, that $17,000 had gone, the savings had gone,
Really?
and we were still on an HSA. So it's real difficult.
And we have employees who don't take our health insurance. We offer, as most towns do, a $5,000, call it a stipend, I guess, in lieu of the health insurance.
If they don't take it.
Right, and I wanted to look at that and maybe increasing it. It's a good business move for the town. An average 2 to 3 person family costs about $10,000 to $13,000 of insurance.
In some cases, an employee's, their spouse might have a
Right.
better deal elsewhere or something.
Or if they don't have quite a better deal, if we offer that stipend, it might make it worth them taking.
Tim, does the city do anything like that? A stipend for for employees who don't take health insurance?
Truth, Richard, I don't know.
Not sure.
Last year was my first budget year, and I
Right.
didn't dive into it that deeply.
Right.
I know that in an effort to recruit police officers, they did eliminate their share of the plan.
The police department pays 100% of benefits and a $10,000 sign-on bonus.
So just to try to fill those voids that they've had, and those initiatives have seemed to have paid some dividends.
Yeah. Speaking of the police department, interviewed on this show Chief Taylor last month. Good to interview the chief. Made it sound like things were pretty solid staffing-wise. I've just run into some folks who have said, well, I don't think things to their eyes aren't as good as the chief said. Has anything changed in the last month, or made it pretty much like things were up to staff? I'm just running into people saying it's not, they're not in as good shape as he said. I mean, anything to you?
No, I know they had a number of people on sort of probation, so they were doing ride-alongs with other officers. So there was a 6-month period that they had to complete.
Yeah.
So I think Chief has been looking forward to for those individuals to complete that time, to fill some of the voids. But my impression is that they are in a better shape than they were a year ago.
Really?
A year ago, or maybe a little bit more, there was a lot of voids in the staffing.
Boy, big department. I think the chief said, 28, I think, uniformed officers? Pretty big department.
But I'm not hearing the same thing as what that was.
No, I met with the chief yesterday around lunchtime, and we talked about, he had said last month that he had 5 in the police academy. That's down to 4. Somebody always flunks out. But sitting over on our end, we don't feel that there's any direct impact. We don't, fortunately, as a contracted service, we don't have to experience what maybe Tim's experiencing with paying all of the overtime necessary to keep all of these zones running.
So you got a specific number of hours in the town, or?
Well, they're supposed to run, I think it's 4 zones, 24 hours.
Okay.
Dispatch is tied in there, and now we have the street crimes unit. So it's a pretty complex set of services. It's the largest contract that we have, but again, I think a lot of us penny pinchers on the board should be looking at that as a cost savings, because I think every police department in the state is experiencing a increased amount of overtime to cover the employees that they can't find, and I can't imagine that it's been fun.
And policing's changed so much over the last 10 to 20 years. I think it's
Sure sounds like there's not a ton of people looking to make their careers as police officers these days, for one thing.
Yeah, I think he's been happy with the response when they have advertised. It does take some hand-holding, if you will, to get them through the academy and then probation and all that. But I think with some of the policies or human resources benefits, if you will, I think he's done a better job of recruiting new officers. So I know we have another one. Moritz is retiring, so.
In fact, maybe retiring from City PD. I think maybe heading over to the sheriff's department.
Potentially, yeah.
But retiring from City PD. That's a veteran officer.
Heard that yesterday.
So, so it's, I don't mean to minimize the police staff, but every business is the same.
Well, it's
I mean, trying to find help
Tell you
across the
about it. You
board.
probably know that about as well as anybody around here.
I mean, across the board, there's not a store you go into that you don't see a sign up for looking for help, or Every town is looking for help.
Yeah.
State police, I mean, the list goes on. Manufacturing, definitely.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any easier.
Yeah. Putting on your, again, talking about kind of your day job hat, Franklin County Industrial Development Corp. I mean, if you got word that a big company was looking to come into Franklin County and needing, say, 100 jobs or more, could you even deal with that? Could you even tell these folks,
Well,
love to have you? Or would you just have to say, love to have you, but don't think we can help you?
Well, I think
Depends, obviously, on what we're talking about.
yeah, I think where our opportunity lies is that we have so many people getting on the interstate and going south. So
Yeah.
the last number was 10,000 people. I got on the interstate early this morning. You had the cars on the off ramp were backed up, just like they are at 5 o'clock in the evening. So you've got about 4,500 people coming into town to go to work, and you got about 10,000 going out of town.
right?
So that's our opportunity.
Yeah.
It's
Close
not.
that gap.
That if you're paying well, and you can keep someone from traveling and being on the road for an hour and a half every day,
Yeah.
getting the same pay for a similar job,
Yeah.
I think that's our opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're selling.
Yeah.
Right.
Just an effort to educate people, and we had one of the ladies in the accounting office at City Hall was
Yeah.
working, lives on French Hill,
Yeah.
working downtown Burlington,
Really.
traveling to downtown
Well,
Burlington
not
every day.
Not a fun place to
No.
deal with, even Burlington's.
So
traffic,
her quality of life has improved immensely because she's gotten probably more than an hour and a half of her life back. She's
So now
not in the car.
working for the city now?
Working for the city at City Hall, and so she's
Wow.
3 miles from work, and
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a huge improvement in
so I think
quality of life.
that's what we need
That's
to sell and share with folks. That
Yeah.
if we keep people from getting on the interstate, it'll be a bonus not only for us but for their lifestyle as well. I think anyway.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How are you faring with the Public Works garage, Brendan? How's that coming on Brigham Road?
Well, we got a double-edged sword there in the last update Monday night from our project manager. The building's about 100% watertight. Doors, windows are in, roof's done. The floor's poured, so they're starting to do their rough-in inspections. Looks like they're going to be able to start closing some walls up as soon as this week. At the same time, we learned that we're going to get the base course of paving in. That was done yesterday by Hungerford Paving, another good local contractor.
Yeah.
That was a big theme of this project, was every dollar we spent, we tried to keep it in local hands.
Yeah.
We found out that V-Trans, who's administering our grant on the salt shed,
For the salt shed.
$376,000, and they want you to wait for every cent of it. We got our bid package together about a month or two ago,
Yeah.
and they haven't reviewed and released it yet, so it looks like we're going to probably have to construct a salt shed in the spring. We were holding out hope all fall that we might be able to squeeze that in, but it's not like we don't have a place to go. It looks like we'll be moving operations sometime at the middle to end of January, and we'll probably have to leave the loader in the salt shed down at the bay for now.
Yeah.
But it's something that all of the employees are trained on. They can help load each other, and
So
we'll
again,
make the
you're
best
hoping
of
to
it.
be moving on the salt shed, just like
We're going to
by
build the
now,
salt
or-
shed next year.
Yeah.
We'd hope to have it up the way that we designed the construction. It should be a pretty quick build, but the inside of it needs to be paved. We didn't do concrete, so you can't pave in too cold of weather. The weather's going to turn pretty cold next week. That probably would have harmed us anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe V-Trans ended up doing us a favor by delaying us, but yeah.
Huh.
When do plants close?
Oh God,
Could be any
anytime
day,
now.
any
Boy,
day
no,
now.
and it does sound like some pretty cold weather. Not
I mean,
that
they got
today
that
was
one
anything
in.
like
They did a lot of paving yesterday for that
Yeah.
garage, and it's amazing to see how much growth that one company's had in the last few years.
Huh.
Doing some small municipal jobs. I think they
Yeah.
did a road in Swanton for the village. So it's nice to see local contractors. We had Harrison Concrete, IREC Excavation. We had Connor being the GC on the whole job.
Right.
But it's been good. It's been a really good experience.
Meanwhile, I see a picture or a story of some state officials logging some time down at the current PW garage, where there's some folks down there just checking out the site for possible future uses, or am I
Yeah.
dreaming that?
Well, we're working on it. We need to have some public hearings when we wrap the budget up. maybe in December, no later than January. We need to figure out what we can do with that site. We all know the history of it. We know it's probably got some pretty awful dirt in the ground, but we've seen the city, they've been remediating all over the place. So if we need to get a cost, I imagine the city manager's office can provide us with a rough estimate.
And there's funding out there.
There is funding, and you know, we've talked with a couple local businesses down in the Bay. You know, it'll just be a big public outreach campaign to see what we want to do. A lot of people bring up the fact that the boat launch over on Hathaway Point on certain weekends of the year and even during the
Pretty
week.
busy, they absolutely, get overrun over there.
And it might make pretty solid sense for this property to maybe knock down a building or two and then encapsulate it all in pavement. And but then you talk to locals and they believe that in order to put a boat launch in, you'd have to do some dredging. So it could be a long odyssey for that property. And whether we prepare it for sale or redevelopment or, you know, reutilize it as a boat launch, who knows? But
And are there some folks, is there some interest, at least on the part of some people, in using that site for a new municipal building? Has that come up, or?
no,
No.
I haven't.
You definitely don't see that.
No, we're talking about the town hall. We're talking about sites on 104.
Yeah,
We got a report back on what it would take to renovate the current building and what we'd get for a useful life out of it. Obvious answers there, extreme amount of money, not that long of a useful span afterwards. We looked at what it would take to buy an existing building that might be coming on the market in the next few months. That got extremely expensive considering the fact that the HVAC equipment and whatnot were 15 years old, 20 years old. Then we looked at what it would take to build a brand new one-level 10,000 square foot facility, and then the same facility with a 10,000 square foot basement under it. And I think the way that the board viewed that report was the best option would be a new facility with a basement, and the site is to be determined at this point, but that's what we're looking at.
you don't see, you really don't see the current municipal building being the building of the future, correct?
I think it should have a future, but
Yes.
I just don't see a benefit to leaving it in the Bay. It's further away from population growth. We don't have a foreseeable timeline on water and sewer in the Bay. We're talking about a village center designation. Me personally, I'd like to review, you know, a lot of people run into problems with Act 250, Criteria 9L. I want to make sure that we aren't backing anybody into any corners by doing that village center designation. You can have more than one within one municipal border, so you know we should look at our growth centers too. But our vice chair, Bruce Cheeseman's on the downtown board at the state level,
Right.
so we've got pretty good connections, and we've been working with the planning commission and some folks from the state. But I think it might be a good idea for the board to maybe get some schooling on the Act 250 ramifications of a village or town center designation
Yeah.
before we move too far forward.
Tim, back to the Halloween storm. It seems like I heard there was some flooding of course, the wastewater plant's been undergoing big-time renovation. Was there some flooding from the rain? Seems like somebody mentioned that to me. Does that mean?
You had down in that North Elm Street area,
Yeah,
that historically has always been a problem
yeah,
with the, so you have all the stormwater flowing down to that point, and the system just can't handle it. So there's a lot of that sort of backs up through the catch basins and floods that area.
Right.
So that was blocked off for a few hours till it receded.
and also hearing the sludge tanks, are there 2 sludge tanks at the wastewater site, that they're pretty close to capacity? Is it harder to kind of deal with that stuff at this point? Does that mean anything?
You might be asking above my pay grade,
Okay.
Richard, but
And I know that's a big pay grade for being mayor.
I mean,
of Albans.
we haven't, yeah, right. We haven't finished the project, the $18 million expansion that's
Still going
is
on.
scheduled to come online another few weeks.
No, really?
Originally I had heard October, but I think maybe early December now. So I know that was part of handling some of that
Yeah.
sludge as well moving forward. So I don't know the specifics, but I know that project is just about completed.
Yeah, speaking of projects, the downtown project, seems like there's some work going on in the hole there, so.
Yeah, so we're doing a groundbreaking tomorrow on
Oh, really?
the Lake and Main project.
Huh.
We're hoping to go for the streetscape on Kingman Street here in 2020.
Yeah.
That would be the TIF approval that we'll go out for.
So that's likely to be or will be on the March ballot, or
I think
could
it's
be?
it could be on the March ballot for sure, and it looks good to happen. If it gets approved, it looks good to happen in 2020.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
we both had paving projects done. I think the ones we did had significant impact. You had Lemnod Drive, that was terrible.
Yeah.
You had South Elm, Weldon, High Street. High Street was getting to be rough. The town, I think they finished the end of
Yeah.
High Street.
Yep.
Yeah, so-
We did Nason, the industrial park.
Industrial Park, yeah, Industrial Park was a great improvement.
Yeah.
So between the two communities paving, I think streets are in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we had a pretty cool development with our paving this year. I had a lot of people when I first got on the board say, you're adding 2 inches of pavement a year to your base. And the base of the roads are meant to handle 6 to 8 inches of asphalt at most. You've got roads like French Hill that have like 18 inches.
Really?
You're paving yourself into a problem.
Interesting.
So we've gotten costs on milling before, and taking it down a couple inches and replacing. The big problem is, what do you do with the several thousands of yards worth of asphalt grindings that you get left with?
And
So
in some cases, you have to ship that out of state. No place in Vermont will take that. Is that something like that you run into?
well, here's what we came up with. They make good shoulder material.
Oh.
So we bought a machine for about, I want to say 115,000, somewhere in there. And that machine will essentially inject this material into the side of the road, and that'll be what we use to shoulder all over town.
As opposed to crushed stone.
Right.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
and we've got several thousands of yards from the first time that we milled. So we might have a little bit more than we can handle. So that might be a topic to discuss. But we're learning as we go.
So French Hill Road in particular has that issue of just getting built up too much?
Well, I think we were headed there with every road that we
Yeah.
had on a 10-year paving cycle, putting 2 inches down and then not ever removing anything.
It's almost standard operating procedure now to mill.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think everything we did this year was all milled. I don't think we just went
Yeah.
over the top of anyone.
That was it was a big step in the right direction for us. And then buying that machine, we used our paving line to buy it. We've gotten some pretty good paving grants the last couple of years, so we were able to get ahead of schedule in a couple areas. So we rerouted some funding to be able to buy that machine, and that'll help get the cost of milling down, because we'll have a way to utilize that material instead of paying it to be trucked out.
Tim, back to the downtown project, as I went by today, the sole surviving building there on Congress Street, is that still unclear about the fate, the future of that?
Oh, it's clear. It's staying.
It's staying?
Yeah. And it's historic preservation. That was their recommendation
Really?
to maintain that and keep it there. So
Was that a surprise? Did you know there was history to that building? I guess that maybe was a.
we knew
guess I
that
didn't
was the
know.
better of the 3 buildings.
Yeah.
And when it was renovated by Steve Wunsch, he did a nice job maintaining the character of it.
Yeah,
So that helped in their decision as well.
yeah. Does that make the overall project just a little tougher, having that?
A little tougher to work around. I mean, obviously you have a business ongoing inside.
Yeah.
The hair salon has been a great tenant, and so it's tough to try to do everything we need to do and not impact their business. But it's going to stay. I think you see that in a lot of, not that we're a big city, but I think you see that in a lot of big cities with in Boston might be a good example with some historic homes in the middle of some new development.
Montreal comes to mind also, some of the beautiful old
Yeah.
churches up there, just these old churches and just a bunch of new stuff all around it.
So
It is what it is.
It is what it is. We've accepted that, and we'll make the most of it for sure.
Yeah. The new apartment building, when will work start on that? Is there a time frame for that?
Soon after. I mean, a lot of the dirt has been removed.
Yeah.
I heard December on that groundbreaking.
Yeah.
So it's worked out well to access the Congress and Main site through the Maiden Lane site and around the Congress Street building. So they've found some other contamination. They've had to remove that, get approval from the state. And
again, is that the case? Some of that stuff's has to be trucked to New York somewhere?
New York, yep.
Seems
And then I think some of the further contamination when the Jesse Weldon Inn burned, which was where the Verizon building is, or I guess it's Verizon, or Consolidated.
Yeah.
So when it burned, you had the foundation, and everything just sort of got pushed into the foundation and covered over. And so when you get into excavating and you find the foundation filled with, I mean, there were some mold bottles that were found that were turned over to the museum and a few other things, but I think that was the amount of that buried stuff was probably more than anyone anticipated.
Yeah.
So that was partly due to some delays. A lot of people have been worried that the corner of Lake or Main and Congress was going to be Newport or Burlington.
Right.
You know, at one point there was a construction trailer on Main Street that was moved out just partly due to the size and taking up parking spaces.
Some folks freaked about that, I guess.
Yeah, so we worked with DEW Marty worked with them to locate them on Main Street in a vacant storefront, so they'll be there.
Yeah.
So when people saw the trailer go away, they thought, this is, we're gonna end up like Newport. So I assure people that things are moving forward, and all the closing was done yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So
And he said groundbreaking tomorrow.
groundbreaking tomorrow, 4 o'clock.
This is I hadn't heard. I just picked up this within the last couple of days. Big issue in Burlington that's come up with Amtrak. Burlington, of course, hoping to hook into Amtrak service through Rutland and on down to New York. But I guess a big issue is what do you do with the trains overnight? So sounds like a lot of folks are not happy to have them anywhere near their beautiful waterfront. And I guess I heard on one of the maybe TV shows or news reports that one possible option is to have them come up to St. Albans. You're hip to that, I assume. Anybody asking you about that?
We've been asked about that on a couple different occasions.
Yeah.
Me personally, I mean, if we have the infrastructure to handle it, it makes sense. But what I don't know is what additional cost does that incur? I mean, you could still maintain passenger coverage up to St. Albans if you're coming this way and vice versa.
Yeah.
But if you're coming up with an empty train just because you need a place to store it overnight, I don't know what those costs are. I don't know what it costs to run a train 30 miles.
If that happened, does the city get anything out of that? Is that
No.
Absolutely nothing?
No.
Just an Amtrak
Just
issue?
more exposure for the city, Amtrak, it'd be great for Rail America or Wyoming, Genesee.
Right.
So it would be more business for them.
Hearing anything more, again, my hope. I keep hoping I live long enough to be able to walk to the nice train station in St. Albans and get on the train and get up to Montreal. That come up at all in your travels?
No, it does still come up. I mean,
Sounds like there's incremental progress. The biggie is building a facility next to Central Station in Montreal.
I mean, I think they're making headway with Leahy's office and trying to figure out what the customs scenario is,
Right.
Where everyone would be cleared. American customs would clear them before
Right.
they got on the train.
Yeah.
And I hear 2 years thrown out.
Yeah, I hear that too, but it seems like I heard a few years ago, 2019 thrown out. But yeah, I'm hearing a couple more years. I mean, that would certainly be, you might get some decent, even foot traffic in St. Albans. If
I
could
agree
get
with you. Yeah,
Montreal folks down here.
I just shared with someone, I may have shared it with you, Richard, that in 1976, Tom Walsh took the neighborhood boys up on the train
Really?
to the Olympics.
Oh, is that right?
You know, we got off the train and
Wow,
watched the marathon up in Montreal.
that's
and
great.
it
I was there too. Didn't go up on the train, but that sounds like a great.
It was a
trip.
great experience.
Yeah, I think I was on maybe one of the last Amtrak. I was heading south on it, but I think Mr. Jim Levy was on board. But I think I was on one of the last of the Amtrak Montrealers In this case, I headed south, but I think we're talking mid-1990s or so, 1995, somewhere like that, was the last train that headed north to Montreal. Then they had bus service for a while, but that didn't, the times were kind of pretty tough. That didn't seem to work out too well.
So we're under discussion, I don't think it's not confidential by any means, but Jim Levy has initiated contact with Greyhound.
That's funny, that was my next question about bus service. I've talked to Jim about bus service before,
so-
really, so he's.
So Brendan and
Interesting.
Carrie and myself and Dom have met with a Greyhound representative.
Really?
He likes what he sees in St. Albans.
Wow,
We're looking for a ticket location where people could buy tickets and
Wow.
be picked up. You know, I don't think, we don't care if it's city or town, but
Yeah.
if we can get additional transportation alternatives. And this would be a situation where two stops a day, one, depending what the starting times is, but Montreal to Boston, where they would
Wow.
stop in St. Albans for a
Wow.
pickup, and vice versa, Boston to Montreal.
Wow.
And so Jim is the one who has initiated it, and
yes, I do wish Jim well, so if I get tired of waiting for the train, maybe at least can get a bus up there.
so he's been, I don't think Jim would mind if I said he's like a dog on a bone on this one.
I don't think he'd mind,
He's pushed it hard, and
yeah.
we've had multiple conversations, so,
Yeah, well, good luck on that front.
yeah, so,
Could be good.
yeah, it could be.
Brendan, what biggest challenge as you look to the new year, not too far from the new year? Of course, we haven't talked the new municipal bill, we touched on it briefly, but, and again, you touched on it, but, so again, you still haven't nailed down a site, but they're,
Yeah, we've got the town hall to look at. We need to find a firm site for it. After that, one of the biggest challenges we have operationally next year is we have to put out an RFP for police services. Our contract with the city is coming to an end, this
you
5-year
did
contract.
just re-up for one more year, did you not?
Yeah, one more year, but that
Through
was,
what, through June,
so
through
the
June
current-
30, 2020, or?
the
year
contract,
later.
should be a year later.
Okay, June 30, 2021, presumably?
The contract we're in now is a 5-year term. The last 2 years were option years. So we executed the last option year, and we now need to renegotiate.
So just like J.D. Martinez, you decided to stay put, you decided not to opt out of this contract?
No.
I'm not sure that was good news for the Red Sox, but I guess I'm getting off. We'll pick up that subject a little later tonight,
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
anyway.
No, we've got that. We've got so many small things we have to do. We're coming out with an interim bylaw. We're going to have a public hearing and a vote on it on the 18th. We were contacted by somebody who wanted to open a commercial daycare in a site over by Seymour that was previously a daycare, and it turned out that we erred a little bit in not including a commercial daycare as a conditional use in that mixed residential commercial district. And so we're coming out with a bylaw to add it as a conditional use in every district. If somebody had a proposal to work with Tim to put a daycare center in the industrial park, I think we should look at it and have the ability to allow somebody to build that business with the shortage of childcare that we have. But yeah, so we've got a lot on our plates, but all good things.
Tim, the Fonda Solo site, anything to
City
report there?
No, not official, not anything significant. I mean,
Yeah.
we had, the city received a Northern Borders grant to put infrastructure in. That was $443,000, I believe.
Really?
In discussions with Dominic, he wants to review, we had a preliminary site plan which showcased potentially three buildings on the site, 10,000, 20, and 50,000 square foot buildings.
Wow.
And what that might look like relative to, what we could attract.
There's been some remedial work has been done on the site, but more needs to be done, or depending on,
No, there's definitely
definitely more.
some cleanup for sure that
Yeah.
needs to be done. I think the estimate's about $1 million.
really?
So if they can, probably the biggest conversation is, do you keep the foundation of the former Fonda facility, or do you remove it? Can you get away with capping it as Brendan had talked about with
Right.
other areas, capping it and just building on top of that? I think the preference is to remove it and be done with it. Make sure you have a clean site. So it's, you have 2 years to use the Northern Borders grants for the infrastructure. So we will need to start acting on what that might look like here soon.
So definitely planning to use that money.
Yeah, definitely use the money, definitely have some commercial activity, not housing. We want to do some job creation. It does have significant allocation for water and sewer. We wouldn't be looking at any scenario like Fonda was, where you had tractor trailers backing out, backing up off from Lower Newton and blocking traffic. And I think we're looking for more of maybe more passive uses, office building, light manufacturing, that type of stuff, without having a whole lot of truck traffic and that type of thing. So.
Yeah. Energizer plant, Brendan, of course, I guess Peerless is still out there, I guess on a
18 months.
temporary basis. Might that end up being permanent, Tim?
Well, they were there for 3 years. We just signed another 2 years.
Really?
So they'll have 5 years there before.
Wow.
I think their lease expired November 1 or December 1, so 2 more years from here.
Are they still expanding in the town park, or is that project finished or long?
No, well, it's sort of finished, but we halted one part of it, which was we tore down the old Building A, we call Building A. It was 85,000 square feet.
Really?
Tore down the front part so we could build the new building. The back end was going to be left because they needed it for their brains of the operation, which is their sorter. And once they got the sorter up and running in the new building, they were going to. But as it turned out, they have found they still need that back 40,000 square feet.
Really?
So we left it. We didn't complete the project as we had originally had pitched to DRB in the town, which was going to be that portion of the building was going to be torn down, parking, and then that was going to be the access for employees coming in from the south end of it, not the front end, not from the north side. So we just were close to signing a lease on the parking lot that we've constructed for the construction purpose from Technor Apex. We're extending that by 2 years, and once again gives them a 2-year period of time to try to figure out how they want to progress. What's sort of happened over time is the way business is being done with drop shipments. So it's sort of that Amazon model that, if you buy a whatever, a stereo from Brendan, instead of it coming from an Amazon warehouse, he's drop shipping it. So for Macy's, if you order a suit from Macy's, instead of Peerless sending it to the Macy's warehouse and they shipping it, Peerless is drop shipping that suit to the final customer. And that's grown. I think I was told they had 195,000 of those drop ship orders.
Really?
Those are one meal, that's one piece. It clogs up their distribution. So they're trying to figure that piece of it out. Whereas before, you loaded up a truck and it went to the Macy's warehouse, in Tennessee, and then you loaded up a Kohl's warehouse. So it was constant loading of bulk items. Now with the system the way it is and the demands of those retailers, now you're getting one shipment at a time of one suit or 2 suits being shipped out, and it clogs up their distribution. So they're sort of reevaluating how they want to handle that moving forward.
Peerless's parent company is in Quebec?
Montreal.
Montreal.
On P-Neuf in Montreal.
Yeah, is that right?
Just not far from the Olympic Stadium.
Really, yeah. When you mentioned the address, yes, I know it well.
So they are, they have continued to grow. I mean, the building now is 300,000 square feet.
Wow. How many employees roughly?
450.
Really? Wow.
Number of suits in the buildings is about 2.6 million.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
So we were talking about that before we came on, that, Ramesh Banzi has been there from day one, and, Peerless is a wonderful community community member. You talk about, they give to a lot of things throughout the community, and they're very, they work with their employees that have childcare issues or healthcare or whatever it is. They work with them on a regular basis. So. The issue with Peerless is they've hired a lot of new Americans. The new Americans are temp employees, which they get van pool up from Winooski, many of them.
Oh, yeah.
Great employees. Peerless would like to make them permanent.
Yeah.
But what happens as soon as you make them permanent, their transportation goes away.
Really?
Because the transportation is being offered by the temp service.
Oh, really?
So now they're so there's the opportunity to move them to permanent, more benefits, but transportation becomes an issue.
Interesting.
That's sort of one
It's
of
always
the
something.
one of the things they're trying to address at Peerless.
Brendan, I certainly personally appreciated, again, the efforts at the St. Albans Bay Dock, putting benches out there, making it much more user-friendly. I would have personally loved for them to have stayed out a little longer, but it was a nice initiative. But
Definitely.
you look for more of that next summer. Any more substantive plans maybe for
the
that, for the
parks?
dock and the park?
Well, the parks, we're working on the Stonehouse. We got a historic preservation grant for $20,000 from the state. Trying to get it weather tight. We've got more money in the bank. We're starting to think about electrical upgrades. The dock, you could see that expanded a little bit. The biggest thing that we're looking at is maybe proposing to voters as part of our budget in March of taking the maybe half-time position of the parks director or supervisor and turning it into a full-time equivalent, and then giving that person a mixed bag of responsibilities and maybe a new title. Have that person be somebody who can live and breathe parks all summer long, maybe keep them open a little later, and then stay on through the year to do some building and grounds maintenance, and then maybe hop in a plow truck if we get in a pinch. We're trying to we realize that our staff's pretty limited in its size, and our tax rate is so small that every time we talk about a full-time position, you're talking several cents on our rate. That's a big percentage jump. So we're trying to find reasonable ways to maximize every cent we spend on staffing. That's been a good proposal. I think it'll get legs.
As we get into colder weather, is your PW director, Mr. Alan Nasher, is he going to take another shot at a skating rink in the Bay Park? Do you know, as you mentioned that?
He has been so busy with this new garage.
I bet.
We had a over 2,000 foot sewer line extension that we had to do basically from in front of the pool through private property over to the new garage through the back side of it. The easements took a while to get. We were able to negotiate a deal there, get that in place. Then it turned out that the cost of getting that particular sewer line in the ground were exorbitant because it had to go through a pretty good chunk of wetlands. And the only way that we could even get a staging point in the wetland to do any boring, even though it was a totally temporary use, was to get a wetland permit, which can take a very long time at a very high expense. And the state wetland program in its in its extreme genius has decided that they don't want to work with us, and so we had to do, as the town, a lot of the open trench work with our excavator. Tied up a lot of our guys, a lot of overtime we had, but we should have that sewer line in the ground soon, and we have engineers, ECI, they're coming in to do about 1,600 feet of boring for us. And they're about one of two companies in the state, maybe the only company that can do a direct shot of boring through that much. Because we couldn't get a staging point. Most companies can go 500 to 800 feet. So it turned out to be kind of a nightmare, but they've handled it really well. And, the project's on track for its completion date and it's on budget. So, no, they've done a good job. But I don't know. He hasn't really had time to breathe. To get back to the original question.
A skating rink in the Bay Park might not be on the top of his mind at this point. Weather hasn't treated him well either in the past.
I would add to that conversation, Richard. I thought the bay looked beautiful. The activity down there.
It's great.
With the dock, the park looked wonderful. The ice cream stand.
The farmer's market looked like it had a pretty good summer by the looks of it.
Walking path. I just thought the whole. So I can't remember someone. I don't remember who told me this, but someone had visited the bay and St. Albans and said, he's traveled all over the country, and he said by far this region is one of the nicest areas he's ever visited.
Well, you take the Bay Park, you lump the dock in with the new parklet, you go down to Kilcare, you've got Burton's Island. I mean, there's so
You got
much.
a lot of good stuff.
And I mean, we've got restaurants all over. It's a pretty good place to live. You know, we say it a lot. This time of year when the weather starts to turn, we might not always feel that way, but we are pretty lucky to live here.
Yeah, good spot. Have health of downtown, Tim. How do you see downtown these days as we head into holidays coming up pretty soon?
Yeah, I think once the weather changed in mid-June, I think they had a good season.
Yeah.
A lot of activities coming into the park. You've got the Festival of Trees and the fireworks coming.
Got Running of the Bells, I trust.
Running of the
will be back.
Bells, I think, is December 7th or whatever that Thursday is.
Looking forward to the
Last
tractor
night, tractor parade.
And Tractor
So-
Parade's great.
I was just talking to Jason Weatherby at the police department. I mean, they're looking at all that stuff, and continues to grow every year, and it's great for the downtown, and
Definitely. Good for the area.
good for great for the area, no doubt
Good
about
for the
it.
county.
Business-wise, any major news downtown these days?
Um,
Always changes,
yeah,
obviously.
tell you the truth, I've been meaning to find out in what was the catalyst. Tom Murphy has a new business going in. I think it may be a clothing store, women's clothing. That space is being renovated. Obviously, you had the Red House Suites and Catalyst move over to the old Burnell's building on Lake Street, which has been a great addition. And even one storefront down at McGraw's, there's a vintage and antique shop there that just opened up. Hotel continues to do well. You know, I spoke to one of the bus drivers in town from Toronto. He raved about the service in the area and the town, and so it continues to get the word out, and people. I heard, I was down at a development conference today with White and Burke, and 20 people said they can't believe how well St. Albans looks and what's going on up there, and there's many towns across the state that would like to know what the recipe was. So.
Yeah. Brendan, down to a couple minutes. Anything you want to quickly touch on that we haven't talked about in a minute or so?
Hey, I mean, we've got an opening on our planning commission we could really use an application
Yeah.
for. If you're interested, please do apply. Other than that, we've got a couple terms opening up on the select board. That's always something for people to think about.
So who's up in March in the select board?
We're looking at Al Vogel and Bruce Cheeseman. They're
And
both up.
have they indicated whether they're going to run again?
Al says that he would probably prefer not to. He's one guy that believes in turnover and representation, and he's going to be 80 next year. So
Talk to Bruce. I think Bruce is likely to run again, or more.
that's what I get from.
I think Bruce has given me that indication too. I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
2 seats up on the select board.
Yeah, we're always looking. I could say I'm always looking for new people to be able to work with. I think that's what keeps progress headed in the right direction. I'm up in a year from March. Don't know. I think it might be time for me to thinking about raising a kid or two. So, there's always something going on. So,
And Mr. Mayor, I believe we have a city election coming up, annual city meeting in March,
March, yeah.
and that might have something to do with yourself here, correct?
Yeah, I'm not going to run.
You're not.
No, just kidding.
Your term is up, though.
Yeah, it's up. Yeah.
Not
you're
up
gonna
by
give me a
now.
heart attack, you jerk.
Feel free to make a big announcement here, but
No,
I hate to hear that.
I expect. Marty told me when I first started that 6 years a minimum. If,
6 years.
Assuming I run and get
You got a
elected.
ways to go.
Got a ways to go.
So you
But
would certainly expect to be running again,
I do, yeah.
right?
Good.
So,
Been a good partner for the town.
and we
We've done pretty well together the last few months.
we talk a lot about a lot of different things, and
We're sitting down like Tim's been mayor now over 2.5 years.
Well, a little
1.5.
under. It'll be 2
One
in
and a
March,
half. So
correct?
you're 2.
Two-year term.
So you're a 2.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're not a 3. All right.
Just about had any more joint meetings planned between the select board and city council? I know you had at least one.
We haven't gotten that far.
We're meeting pretty regularly in small meetings, but
Yeah.
I just,
Anyway, okay, gentlemen, time for me to wrap it up. Thanks to Brendan Deso, the St. Albans Town Select Board Chairman, and St. Albans Mayor Tim Smith.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Richard.
your time. Thanks for my man Roger out there doing all the hard work. Thanks for watching us on Northwest Access TV, and just flip one channel over in half an hour and we can talk some sports. Thanks for watching us. We'll catch you next.